Travis Wayne Goodsell. We can now say in a coming day, because it will be less than a week, Trump will be inaugurated, and day one, he will begin mass executions, mass lockups, mass deportations. Utah is going to be hit hard by this. Governor Cox tried to fool Trump by coming out with a public statement saying that he's going to conform and comply. Then came out later and said, well, yeah, it's important, but Utah has other priorities first. And then ICE, the director here in Utah, had leaked that he was told by Governor Cox that Utah is a sanctuary state and that he needed to back down when Trump takes over. This will not be good for Mormons in Utah. This will not be good for Utahns living in Utah. The other day, I did the video about how there are just so many different groups that will be affected, that Utah will be from 3.418 million down to as low as 50,000, maybe, because everybody will be forced to conform and comply to Trump's new administration. And men will be called into war with a draft. We'll have to wait and see. It'll depend on how many military there are. Those who are women, those who are LGBTQ will be booted out of the military service and designated to their other relocation. And so, depending on how many men are left in the military, will determine when the draft will be initiated. For Panama, the southern border, the northern border, and an invasion into Canada and Greenland, as well as the various states, specifically those of the deep state Dems. Civil war will break out in America. And so the MAGA states will depend on whether or not their National Guard and police force agencies can handle the deep state Dems in their states. Likewise, Utah, technically being a MAGA state, but getting exposed as a Mormon state, because we can't say deep state Dem. Mormons vote MAGA, but have no interest in MAGA. It's all about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so this is where they'll get exposed by MAGA, who are not Mormon in the state of Utah. And so a civil war will still break out here in Utah. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will be exposed. There are 3 illegal apostles: Uchtdorf, Suarez, and Kieran. They got to go. Under Trump's administration, they got to go on day one. They are not here legally. They're using the cover of religion. That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're married to an American citizen. You got to go too. That's Trump's policy for deportation. And so anybody who's not an American citizen and not of the long list of blacklists are the only ones who can be allowed in Utah or in America on day one. Everybody else will be murdered, locked up, or deported. We all know this. This shouldn't be a shock to anybody. Trump's been saying it for years. Way back in 2015, when he announced he's running for president. Continued it in 2016, leading up to the election. Said it all 4 years. Wanted to do it. People told him no, and so he had to fire them and get somebody new, and they told him no. And then Biden for 4 years, and MAGA was able to get their SCOTUS to overthrow rights and privileges of Americans. Grant Trump full immunity to do whatever he wants the next time he becomes president. And so yes, SEAL Team 6 will be hired for assassinations, ordered for assassinations. Nukes will be launched. The military will be brought in on American soil. Whatever is needed to accomplish Trump's goals. Final solution. This shouldn't be a shock to anybody. Deep State Dems and the Deep State Dem press shouldn't be surprised that they're all rounded up and executed on live Trump TV. Nobody should be surprised of what is coming on day one next week. We all know it's coming. He said it's coming. We know that the laws have been made and destroyed so that Trump can do whatever he wants this time. It should not be a surprise to anybody of what is about to happen in a coming day. There should be no denialism, nobody arguing, trying to make excuses. Oh, Trump's just kidding. He would never cross that line again. He's learned his lesson. The presidency will calm him down. He'll take it seriously. Seriously? He wanted to nuke hurricanes. He used a Sharpie to change the path of a hurricane. He's going to destroy all federal agencies. Are you kidding me? It is sickening to listen to denialists, whether they're Deep State Dems or MAGA. It's utterly sickening and pathetic. So, prophecy has told us that when the enemy comes as a thief in the night to Utah and destroys the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for their betrayal of Trump, the prophets are going to flee. And so I would hope that Uchtdorf, Suarez, and Karen are among the first to flee. This Thursday's meeting, guys, you need to be assigned out of the United States of America, as all the prophets and apostles will need to do so. Even the first presidency all need to go. And you need to flee before Trump comes in and destroys all your works, destroys the Salt Lake Temple, leaving not a single brick behind for your betrayal of him. You made him, you didn't control him, you can't. You knew that, and yet Dallin H. Oaks got leaked by a mission president of Australia in 2020. where Sister Jessica was supposed to serve her mission, and she had to get transferred to Montana after being called home for a brief period of time. Missionaries were called home in 2020. Nelson wasn't happy. He wanted more missionaries to stay out. Nobody remembers that. He ordered Herbert still, in the April conference to reopen the state of Utah. So Governor Herbert made sure it happened. He had to frame the Salt Lake City airport director by hacking his home computer and downloading child porn on it, and then having an anonymous whistleblower to claim that there's child porn on his computer. And we've never heard from him since. So Governor Herbert was able to put in a new director and get the airport opened that Friday, just as he ordered it to be done. This is how evil the church is. And it's going to get cold tonight. There are 3 new homeless persons under the bridge that the lights have been turned off on. Only lasted a week. Yep, Chief Brown is not happy with me. He doesn't want to do his job and lock up the church for their crimes. I found another source from the Harold B. Lee Library that went over the Edmunds-Tucker Act, shutting down the church, dissolving it, ceasing it to exist on the face of the earth in 1887 with the Edmunds-Tucker Act, along with the Perpetual Immigration Fund. Because this, likewise, was another attempt where missionaries should have been called home, like it was with the assassination of Joseph Smith. They do show that there were 35-ish to 40 after Joseph Smith was assassinated, who were still left on missions from the over 500 that they were initially having before then. And then with the Edmunds-Tucker Act, we see that John Taylor stranded missionaries abroad, and even have to check the dates, because John Taylor died in prison. Wilford Woodruff assumed responsibility in 1990 as the lead of the dissolved church. Dissolved church. You're not understanding what that means, Mormons. We are not a religion anymore. The United States dissolved the church. It was never reincorporated. The document that I have been showing you lately that includes the FLDS Church of Warren Jeffs and the scandal that occurred while he was locked up in prison, and he was forced to confess that he denounces his leadership. And local news said that Warren Jeffs claims his church is a fraud. Mormon church is true now. And Warren, while still in prison, still claimed to be the leader of the church, as all of his followers never believed that he had denounced it. It's those mean old prison guards that are lying and telling lies about their prophet, living prophet of Jesus, rape baby of Adam. Mormons don't understand this. We grow up, we don't get told, and then we hear things and we're like, no, that's not our church. You leave the church and you screw it all up. And, dear God, YouTube attacked Stanford's comment today because this church is criminal. Section 119, which Brigham Young used to require for the payment of men, not women, women weren't allowed to work, in order to get sealed in Brigham Young's temples. And that's prostitution, just like a brothel. You have to pay to have sex with a woman in a brothel. You have to pay in this church to have sex with a woman. It's the same thing. Chief Brown, he won't do his job. He's guilty of it. He knows the new Attorney General is guilty of it. Won't do their jobs. Our governor is guilty of it. Every Mormon in Congress is guilty of it. Every Mormon in the federal courts, in the state courts, in the city courts, all guilty of it. Mormons are still committing sex crimes. And yet, they have the audacity, as leaders of the corporation, not a religion, remember, to order Mormons to stay away from porn. When porn comes from the Greek word prostitute, which was the Greek temple practice of paying to have sex with a woman in the Greek temples. And when they took over the Jerusalem temple and did that practice, the Jews called it the abomination of desolation. And here Brigham Young was practicing it. To this day, it is still being practiced. But because of women demanding to work, we now do the Roman practice of adding males as prostitutes. These are crimes, Mormons. This is the corporation that's lied and deceived you. We are not a religion. They have no authority for religion. They are defrauding the IRS. They are defrauding the federal government and state governments. None of your marriages are valid. They have no authority to marry. All the sealers have no authority. Even though they're lay ministers, only the corporate board are getting paid with priestcraft, with the prostitution money. And then they're using that prostitution money to fund terrorism. Islamic State terrorism, Russian terrorism, and other terrorism. All for the one purpose: to destroy the United States of America. And it's going to backfire on them. Because they thought that they could get Trump to do what they wanted, and it's going to backfire on them. If you didn't want him to come after Utah, you shouldn't have had SCOTUS give him absolute authority to do whatever he wants. So the church will be destroyed in the coming days. We'll have to see how long it takes. Governor Cox is going to be put on the front lines to take the hit. He'll lie and deny to Trump all he can. He's already tried to fire the ICE director. The ICE director simply has to tell Trump and tell the people coming in who may or may not get appointed this week that Governor Cox had ordered him to stay away from doing his job that Trump wanted him to do, and that they tried to get him fired. That will not go over well with Cox or with the church. It will expose him. all hell will break loose. But the one thing in all of this is Heber C. Kimball prophesying that in the latter days, the persecution against the church in Utah will get so severe that missionaries will have to be called home. But there's a problem now. The attack on the church next week will be of such a nature that the church won't be able to call you home. Prophets are going to have to flee. Your missionaries, whether they're your grandkids, aren't they? Or great-grandkids? Because those are the only audience I have, apparently. Grandchildren and great-grandchildren. That's all that my audience has. They will be stranded in whatever foreign country they're in. They will be stranded in whatever state of the United States they're in. They won't be able to come home because of the attack in Utah against the church. Prophets are going to flee for their lives because they are harboring not just illegals, but terrorists. Karen is both an illegal and a terrorist. It ain't going to be good for this church. Am I able to... What do I have to do for that one? I am going to have to do a snapshot of that picture, it looks like. Okay. So now I have to find out which... Or maybe I can just redo it. Yeah, we'll redo this picture so that we properly label them as illegals and then Karen as illegal and terrorist. I don't think Mormons are accepting what is coming. They aren't able to see consequences, which is typical. Mormons don't see the consequences of believing that Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are Christian rather than the Jewish as they say they are. As they lie and deny to threaten other people that it's Christian. Making apologies and excuses and false testimonials about how they're Christian, denying that they're Jewish. As a result, Mormons miss out on all of the awesome prophecies and revelations that are getting fulfilled in these latter days. As that was this morning's video. Thanks to Stanford. And yet YouTube is on the tear. As other social media platforms are now on the tear because Trump is about to take over. They've been waiting. Brigham Young established the underwear with the marks of Freemasonry. And it was designed such that when they are confronted with the enemy, who would be Illuminati too, that when they are in the process of raping the women, Mormon women, or stripping down the Mormon men to be tortured, that they would see the marks on the underwear and go, oh, you're one of us, and back off. That is no longer the case. Too much time has gone by that the new Illuminati, neo-Illuminati of today, of all their various organizations that they're a part of, see the underwear as creepy cult stuff. And so any Mormon wearing the underwear will be sabotaged. You will get raped as a woman. You will get stripped and tortured as a man, just because you're wearing the underwear. Your underwear will no longer be a shield and a protection to you against the power of the destroyer until you have finished your work on the earth anymore. There ain't no magical powers that will save you. And I don't think you fully understand this, because you're in denial of history of this church, that the church has been lying and deceiving you with this whole time, even to the point of excommunicating and punishing financially those who leak real church history that exposes that this church has been lying to us. But all your missionaries will be stranded, stuck wearing the underwear around the world, unable to come home because Trump will be closing down the borders and the ports of entry. And so if you are a missionary, you will be identified as the enemy in America. You will not be allowed into America because of what the church has done by putting Trump in. It is going to be a very sad day. All these little kids trapped in foreign countries or in other countries or other states, unable to get home. And there will be heartbreaking news, because what are they going to do? They can't continue their missions. They're from America. They're Mormon. They're wearing the underwear. They'll be hated all around the world, because Trump is going to turn our allies into enemies and our enemies into allies. And the only way that will save you guys is if Nelson says, "You win. We will let you go." And they hand over everything to me so that I can save your lives. But he ain't doing it today. And so, one day less as we get nearer. They don't want to give this up. They don't want to stop lying. They don't want to confess. They don't want to make restitution. They don't want to stop their criminal operation. They're all in. And come next week, if they don't flee, they'll get locked up. Church will get dissolved. Maybe you think that the Mormons and the military here in Utah, the National Guard and the police forces, and Mormons who have guns to go hunting every year will be enough to hold back Trump's military. Or Trump can just nuke us. You don't get it. And so all the prophecies about nukes on Utah soil are about to happen too. You chose wrong simply because you didn't run the tests on these so-claimed, self-titled prophets. You didn't run the right test on the Book of Mormon to find out it was Jewish. You didn't run the right test on Joseph Smith to find out he's Jewish. And so you got deceived, you got conned, and now you are going to pay the price for it. Consequences of following false prophets. Good luck with that.